Morning, everyone. Great to be here this morning for the second session. So, yeah, I'm David, co-founder of XSell, a digital marketing agency here in Belfast, and also the VRPARK. And we're a Verbella partner, headquartered here in Belfast. So first of all, apologies, I'm going to use the C word again. Yeah, it's COVID. So you've heard it a few times. We're all living with it at the minute. And I guess what I wanted to do was to look back. We talked about 100 years disruption. And 100 years ago, kind of 1918, after the end of the First World War, we've seen the Spanish flu. And that had a similar impact as we're having today. The thing is, there's nobody alive today who can really tell us what that was like, but we don't really need for them to tell us what it was like. We know what it was like because we're living it right now. And what's unique in that is that everyone on the planet is experiencing the same thing at the same time. So over the last 20 months, there's a lot of empathy, there's a lot of resonance in terms of how we've been coping. So I'm going to look today, I guess, at something that Simon talked about yesterday at the start, which is serendipity. And serendipity is really that opportunity for people to meet up informally, naturally, and make things happen. It's what we do as human beings. And working from home, which has been forced upon us, we've lost that opportunity to have those serendipitous moments. And I'm hopefully going to show you today how we use technology to actually create those moments. So that's my goal today. So what are we going to look at today? Well, really there's three things. It's how COVID has changed the way we work. It's very much looking at what that impact has had on human beings, people, and also business. And then I'm going to really look at what next. What can we do to make things better for everybody? So if we look around today, it's a good example of how we've been affected. So this is the first event that I've been to in probably nearly 2 years. We're still seeing it, the reduced seating, the 1 metre rule, the masks, the reduced footfall. But things are coming back together again, which is great, but we're still having the impact. And I guess the biggest impact is been working from home. I'm not sure if I was in agreement or not, but it's working from home. So I guess there's three camps in that working from home piece. There's people who love working from home. My wife would be a big advocate of working from home. When she had the opportunity to work from home, it automatically added value to her life. It reduced her travel. It avoided a certain amount of office politics. It gave her more time. So there's definitely people who say, you know what, I'm loving this. I want to work from home. You've got the other side of the camp who's maybe struggled a little. Maybe the space wasn't ideal. Maybe they didn't have the right technology, the right broadband. Maybe it was that isolation, not getting to actually see people and meet people. That was a challenge. And then you've got the kind of in-betweeners who like working from home. And I would have been one of that camp. In the past, I would have enjoyed working from home at times and also been in the office. But it was very much in line with working from home on my terms. If I needed to do a bit of work and I needed peace and quiet, I would work from home that day and I would get a lot done. But it was my choice to go back into the office the next day. And what COVID did was take away that choice. So I definitely suffered a bit after the first 3 months. The first 3 months of lockdown was great. The weather was good. The family were there. It was good times. After that, maybe not so much. So if we look at the impact on the work piece there, that one of the key things is I think that expectations have now changed. From an employee point of view, there is a newfound freedom. Actually, we don't need to be in the office. We've proven that we can actually work effectively from home, and that's absolutely not going to go away. The commuting time is probably one of the biggest areas that people have seen, not actually have to get up that hour earlier or use that hour earlier to do something else. LinkedIn's full of images of people doing their mid-morning or the early morning dips or paddle boarding instead of that commute piece. Not so much for me, I must say. I'd rather have an extra hour in bed than to drop into a cold sea. But people can use that extra time for learning, or maybe family life. Maybe they've got a dog over lockdown, they want to spend time with the dog. So all of those pieces are coming into play. But it's very much employee-led. It's very hard to resist. It's very hard to justify dragging people back to work if we've proven that we can actually work from home. So that's a challenge, not just for the employee who maybe wants to stay at home, but also the business end who's thinking, well, how do we manage that? How do we manage that moving forward? So with challenges comes opportunities, for sure. Hybrid in some shape or form is here to stay. I don't think anybody, I haven't heard any argument, counter argument to that. There will be some form of hybrid. The opportunities for stakeholders in that are many, and we've experienced that ourselves. So throughout lockdown, we actually had some hires. We were hiring some sales folk. We hired a guy who's here today, and he's pretty local, and that was good. And that would have been our traditional way of recruiting. Very office-centric, bringing the team into the office, working from the office. So you hired people pretty much within the sort of striking distance of the office. But as part of that journey for us, when we were all working from home, we cast the net a little wider. First of all, it's not easy to recruit. I think we're all seeing that, particularly in the tech space, particularly in Northern Ireland. So we actually hired a guy from Donegal. Now, that's not to say we wouldn't have hired a guy from Donegal in the past. There's nothing wrong with Donegal. But what it did was it gave us the opportunity to actually reach out a bit wider and access a different gene pool. And that's worked really, really well for us. So it's forced us to kind of change our view on that. So what we've learned over lockdown is that we actually can work remotely. And I'm a great believer in saying that, I hate the phrase, well, we've always done it this way. And I'm going to hold my hand up and say, well, I'm as guilty as anybody, because the way we worked was the way we always worked. So when were we going to challenge that? And I think individually we couldn't, but it's back to that 100-year disruption. The disruption is across the globe. So the world has changed, the view of the world has changed, the experiences that we've all had have changed. And, as a sales guy, if I think back to pre-COVID, I would have went to Dublin maybe once or twice a week. So imagine the scenario. I got up reasonably early, I hit the road, had a couple of meetings to go to, but I stopped in the Apple Green on the way down, got a nice coffee, listened to the radio. Life was good. I'm working hard. I'd done a couple of meetings, back up the road, in the Apple Green again, check the emails, working hard again, back home for tea. I'm thinking, yeah, well, that was, David, you're a great guy. You've been on the road for 10 hours. You've been working really hard. But how effective was that? So I did two meetings. I can do 8 meetings now in a day without, breaking a sweat. So my effectiveness and efficiency has increased fourfold in terms of that. And back in the day, I guess, 18, 20 months ago, your customers expected you to come and see them. Over COVID, they didn't want you to come and see them, but they still wanted to move forward. They still wanted to move those projects forward. So we've all learned to work in a different way. So that's a big lesson for me in the effectiveness of our small business. So just to take probably two sides of the coin. So what do people miss about the office? Well, around half just miss the human bit of it, actually meeting up with people and socialising and going for a drink after work and catching up on family and all the kind of the human stuff you'd expect. About a third actually miss the daily routine, and when I hear the word routine, it kind of sounds dull. But in reality, as human beings, we need some sort of routine. You need to get up in the morning, get dressed, go to work, do your job, do whatever needs to be done. And that's kind of how we cope with life. It's just what happens. So not having that routine of getting up and going to the office every day has been a struggle for people. And that's the sort of things that you didn't think that they would miss, but they actually do. And the other bit then is about a third is that face-to-face, actually working with someone face-to-face rather than on the phone or over a Zoom or Teams call or whatever that happens to be. And then, so what do people enjoy while working from home? Well over half. It's back to these paddle boarders and early morning dippers sort of thing. It's the no commute time. It's that extra time, that frustration of sitting in traffic, on the way to work or the way home. It's maybe freeing up 1, 2, 3 hours a day, of which was dead time. The flexibility piece has really come into play. You know, pre-COVID, there was a lot of stress on people in terms of, you know, being sort of time poor, just not enough time in the day to do things. Taking out that commute piece is giving people that extra time, but extra time to do things with the family. And I think the maturity of work now is employers look at employees to see what they produce rather than what they produce at 9 to 5. So they don't need to be working 9 to 5. They could take out a couple of hours in the middle of the day and go and pick the kids up from school or do a message, but pick that up in the evening time at a time that suits them. So as long as the work's being done and everybody's happy with that, then there shouldn't be a problem. So that flexibility is absolutely key. And then the other bit is the work-life balance, and we've talked about that at the start. So how can you achieve a strong company culture? Well, I think I've got the answer. It's more Zoom calls, more Teams calls. No, that's not actually it. So I'm sure we've all heard by now Zoom fatigue. If you haven't, you will hear about it. If you haven't heard about it, you've probably experienced it. And the thing about Zoom fatigue is, it's that thing that just creeps up on people, and unless you actually point it out, you go, actually, you're right. You know, that's actually a negative thing. So there's a few things that the kind of reports are showing. If we're having a conversation in real life, face to face, there isn't a small image of yourself looking back at you down in the right hand corner, which there is on a Zoom or a Teams call. Zoom seems to have got the hard bit of that, by the way. Microsoft avoided it. It's Zoom fatigue, not Zoom and Teams fatigue. So well done, Microsoft, for avoiding the negativity around that. So that unnaturalness of you looking back at yourself, or when you go to speak, suddenly your face is in the frame and you're nearly in presenter mode and you feel everybody's looking at you. That's a very uncomfortable feeling. If you're in a conversation, it may be, well, I'll not actually say anything in this call because I don't want to be that big face on the screen that everybody's looking at. And if we were meeting face to face and somebody was in my personal space, I'll just take a slight step back and say, okay, that feels a bit awkward. But if you're in a Zoom or a video call and that big face is there and it's a one-to-one and you're this close, you've no real wriggle room. Suddenly somebody is digitally in your face. That's not to mention the kind of body language and the cognitive overload of trying to work out when do you speak, do you go on mic, do you show your video, there's a dog in the background, the kids come into the room, there's noise, why is he looking that way? All that sort of psychological stuff that goes on behind our thoughts in terms of trying to work out what's the dynamic of this call and how's it going. And all that adds to stress. And if you're doing lots of those every day because you need to in order to get your job done, at the end of the day you're going to be shattered, you're going to be mentally shattered and stressed. So Zoom isn't the answer, you know, it just isn't. So how do we extend organisational culture amongst your teams? That's the big challenge, I guess. And I think we need to just simplify it a little and bring it down to people, because as people, we know about culture. So you know if you're in an environment where there's a bad culture, you can influence culture, you create culture, you just get on with culture. That's the culture of your business. You don't go in thinking, today we're going to, let's see how this culture thing's going to work. It just becomes the thing within your business. But it becomes a thing whenever you're with people in a natural way. And what I'm hoping to show today is that there is a way of being present in a digital way, which is as close to being physically there as it's possible to be. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to get across today. The ability to digitally feel present, which I think a lot of us have struggled to feel over the last 18, 20 months. So I think if you're being present, the culture will follow. And just a few components there in terms of what to consider in terms of, what are the things that are going to impact that new work future. So there's going to be a remote climate. Just need to get over it. That is something that's going to be here. There will be a significant amount of your team likely to be working remotely, and we just need to be aware of that and put things in place to resolve it. That managing competing work-life priorities is difficult for people if they're working from home. Is that when does the working day stop? I said about the flexibility, so it's a double-edged sword. Yes, you can be flexible in what you do and when you work, but if there's no routine, there's no clarity about when you switch that off. So there needs to maybe be things put in place to help people actually stop working when they're at home and clear those boundaries between work and life. But psychological safety, it's back to that stress thing. You know, I've spoken to a few people who've joined companies over COVID, and they've never actually met anybody. They've never met any of their colleagues face to face, and it's not looking like they're likely to meet them anytime soon. So in a normal scenario, you would meet new people, you build up rapport, friendships, alliances, you would get to know the people a little bit better. But imagine you being the person who's only ever met people digitally. Now, funny, I was coming in yesterday and a client was signing in at the same time. So I pulled the mask down and said, "How you doing?" And he went like this. "Who's this guy?" And he says, and then he kind of dawned on him I think it dawned on him who it was. Or else he was bluffing. He was going, "I don't think we've met physically before, have we?" And the whole dynamic just changed, because then I went, "Well, you're right, we haven't." And then it was nearly like the, "Oh, hello," that awkward getting to know you moment sort of thing. But it was a good example where you thought you knew somebody, and then when you meet them in real life, it's a completely different thing. So that was an interesting moment for me yesterday. So any solution for this moving forward, it needs to add value to the people, and it needs to solve problems that you actually have. So for me, success will take into account that there will be groups of people or individuals who are working in separate areas that need to coexist. They need to work together in a much more collaborative way, real way, rather than that Zoom team scenario piece. The chance encounters is back to serendipity again. Those water cooler moments, as people would call them, they sound a bit twee, but actually they're a significant part of a company's success and their culture and how they grow. I'll give you an example of our story in XSell. So yeah, we all went to our corners when Boris told us to. We went home, we worked for 3 months, and we kind of got away with it. And what I mean by that is we fulfilled our customers' requirements. We carried on. We just, we went forward like everybody else, and everybody was sort of looking to see what happens next. And as soon as we could get back to the office, we got back into the office. And within days, now all didn't come back, so we've kind of got a third who work from home pretty much all the time, a third who'd be in the office all the time, and the other third kind of come in and out. And we need to be aware of, obviously, the constraints about bringing too many people back into the office as well. But once we start to get people back into the office, those the synapses, the sort of ideas, the opportunities, we did 3 or 4 things just to come up in conversation, which pushed the business forward. And that was a big aha for me, which was, be careful about thinking that your business is actually okay. It might just be surviving and getting through, but the opportunities to grow and that when ideas come together, need to come together in a very natural way. So it's a little bit just about our story there. So what's next? Well, I've got a short video to play. I'm a great believer also. I'm saying I'm a great believer a lot, so I must believe in something. But I would rather show than tell. So I've got a short video which just gives you an idea of the VR Park, and then I'll talk a little bit about our journey and how we became a Verbella partner and developed the VR Park. So hopefully this will play automatically. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that. I've just been told to stand closer to the mic, so apologies. Well, look, very quickly, I guess, I just wanted to tell you about our journey and how we got to the VR Park. So it all started, I don't know, 10 months ago. So Adele, my business partner's daughter, was applying to PwC for one of the undergrad programs. And as part of that process, they were invited to an open day in PwC's virtual park. So bearing in mind, XSell are a digital agency, and we run lots of digital events for clients, and we'd run some virtual events. And Adele was, let's say, slightly underwhelmed with the experience that those folks were having, but also the cost to put it on was more expensive than a physical event. The effort was maybe 5 times more. So you're putting a lot of effort in to create this this virtual event, and the experience for the attendees was okay. So that was kind of the background. When she arrived in the virtual PwC park, it was really that aha moment of going, oh my goodness, what is this? This is next level stuff. And as her daughter went off on some of the tracks to listen about the courses and what was next, Adele's off into the rest of the park, having a good read around to see what's on offer and what's available. Straight back to me, I've seen the future. Of course, I'm giving it, yeah. And then she showed it to me. Now, I'm a veteran of IT, been around for a while. So I haven't seen technology that's wowed me for years, 20 years maybe. But when I seen the technology, I knew exactly what Adele meant. It was different level. And we've very quickly signed up. We actually signed up to our own office because we realised with that remote working piece, with the lessons we had learned about actually needing to work together as a team, and actually the feeling of needing to be somewhere together, was just a no-brainer. So we signed up, and that was the start of our journey then. To be fair, we had to do a bit of pushing back in. So Verbella are an American business based in America, haven't really considered Europe that much. So we've basically taken them on a journey to, look, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it in Europe for you. So let's get it on. And I think we were nearly only a page behind them as we were writing the contracts for that partnership agreement. That's what it felt like. So, like everything, it doesn't happen quickly, but it's happened, and we are now the VR Park. So we're actually here today, stand 11, I think it is. So if you want to come over and have a look and experience the software, enter a competition, you get a month's free office if you're successful. But look, that's me today. I think I'm going to do a bit of Q&A just at the end here, but look, thanks for listening. And I'll hopefully see you over at stand 11.
David, thank you very much for that. A couple of quick questions then. You mentioned about your trip to Dublin and how you'd only have 2 meetings and things. Do you think there's been a change now from efficiency maybe to effectiveness being a key measure when we're looking at how our teams are performing?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. It's back to that, the way it used to be, is, it's just changed. Change is always hard. You put up your hand if you want change, you put your hand up. Put up your hand if you're good at change. No, maybe not so much. So what has happened is that there's a collective change which is forced upon us, and whenever you're forced to change on people, you have to react. So you have 2 things: you can just step back and go, well, like that's life, or you can push on. And I think the last 2 days are a good example where the guys in Digital DNA have said, you know what, it may not be the perfect time, but let's do it. Let's push forward to try, And I think yesterday was very effective for us. So we're happy to be back, and we will always measure things on how effective it is. So that's absolutely fair.
And have you found your clients are demanding different things from you and more from you in the marketing business, given that they're going through this seismic change as well?
100%. So we're fortunate in terms of we're a digital business, and for the last 20 months, everybody's been talking about a digital first engagement, so everybody's had to go home. So the only way they can stay connected is through digital channels. If you take even simple things like trying to acquire a new customer, and you want to phone the decision maker, well, if you phone the office, there's a good chance they're not going to be in the office. So it's all about building digital brand, digital reach out, and that's put more pressure on us for sure. And then we've kind of paralleled that with the park, which is actually, so a lot of clients here are talking to us about maybe digital lead generation, digital piece, or actually looking at the park and going, well, actually, could we use that for an event? Would that be a good way to stay connected with our customers? Would that be a good way to give them access to our teams or tech support or whatever it happens to be? So I think everybody's kind of RAS is very high now for new and different ways to engage with their staff, but also their customers.
One last question for you. Probably the most difficult question you'll ever get asked. Can you predict the future for us? Do you think that the change and the seismic nature of it is finished and it's going to slow down and we'll get into a bit more of a maintenance groove? Or is the change going to keep coming just as fast as it is? You're being recorded on camera as well, so we'll be able to play this back in 5 years' time, David.
Right. Well, I think the internet's going to be very successful. That's what I think.
Me too.
No, look, I think everything's going to move forward. You know, I'm hoping it's going to be at least 100 years before the next big disruption comes. But the pace of change now, I think that's the thing that's been most startling, is that the pace of change is incredible. It's incessant. You know, so I don't know what's going to come next, but something different is going to come next, and we're going to be going along for the ride.
Brilliant. David, we'll leave it there. Can you put your hands together for David McCullough?